Hey folks, it's Mandeep. It's actually been quite a while since I've done a video, so I'm going to dedicate today's video on stock selection. So those of you who actually subscribe to my YouTube channel, you know that we focus on a strategy called the ultimate trading strategy that is used to automatically determine when to buy a stock and when to sell a stock. So those of you who are not familiar with the ultimate trading strategy, I will put a link in the description, and I have a video that actually covers the strategy overall, and you can watch it to get an idea on how we use the indicators, how do we use the forward looking time frames, and determine what is the most appropriate time to buy a stock. Now, the ultimate trading strategy is also predicated on a dynamic list, and I actually provide those lists along with the software that people that who buy it from me. And this stock selection, list that we have is actually dynamic in nature, so it is constantly adjusting itself because it's based on stocks that are actually outperforming the market. It's based on which sectors are doing well. It's also looking at the overall market conditions, right? So out of like 5,000 stocks, you're actually left with maybe about 15 to 20 good stocks that you want to look at. But even within those 15 and 20 stocks, uh, you don't have to make your own judgment. The software is intelligent enough to make the call for you by providing you a buy signal and subsequently a close signal here. So, but I wanted to show you a couple features inside of Thinkorswim that are generally helpful. So, one of the first things that we always look at is sort of the overall market conditions, right? And in this case, as you can see, the breadth is negative, and this breadth basically means that for every one stock that's up in New York Stock Exchange, 1.5 foot down, and we had a similar ratio in Nasdaq. So whenever this ratio is less than 2 to 1, it's usually a neutral market. It could be the green or red. But when a market is trending, you will see this ratio pop up to 6 to 1. So for every one stock that's down, 6 or 7 are up, and those are good days for a trending market. Now we also compute what's called the market thrust, and the market thrust is essentially looking at four different parameters. It's looking at issues that are advancing, it's looking at issues that are declining, and it also uses how much volume is flowing into issues that are advancing versus volume flowing in issues that are declining. So you can see from here that most of the volume was actually flowing into issues that was declining. So it wasn't the best of the days to take long side trades, but you can clearly use this dynamic list because there are always some sectors that do well. Certain sectors that tend to be defensive, like some of the pharmaceutical companies tend to do well. And some of the consumer staples might also do well. More recently, gold has been doing very well. So the way to start is going into the market watch, and I actually have a sector performance list that I provide when you get the software from me. So one thing was obvious as you looked at this on Friday that almost everything was red. So the small cap index was red. The technology sector was red. So was the financials, the bonds, the consumer discretionary, the utilities, the staples, and the pharmaceutical sector was actually doing all right, and we'll take a look at that. The industrial was actually red, and the other thing that was doing well was IBB, which is the index for the large cap, biotech and pharmaceutical stocks, along with the USO and OIH, which is the index for oil. So what we can do is we can go back and instead of this personal list, let's take a look at one of the public lists. And the public list that I prefer looking at is the Russell 1000, right? So this gives you how the stocks are doing overall. So, but as I said, if you look at the communication sector, Google and Facebook that did well. If you look at the discretionary sector, a lot of stuff was red, right? So moving down to the healthcare, these are the stocks that were actually doing well. So Zamgen was doing well, Biogen was doing well, Alexion was doing well. And what is more interesting is that the list that we generate dynamically also includes some of these stocks. So you can see we have Alexion, we have Amgen, we have Biogen in the list as well. Now, if you drill down into the healthcare providers, and you can see we have United Healthcare, we have Humana, and all of those are actually the list as well. So Humana is there in the list, and so is United Healthcare. Now, so since this list, has let's say 20 to 25 stocks, how do we further drill them down? And one of the ways we can do that is by looking at the opening range breakout for the 30-minute or even the first hour. The opening range breakout is essentially the for the first 30 minutes is the range established between 9:30 a.m. and 10 o'clock on the Eastern Standard Time, and then for the hour would be 9:30 to 10:30. And when the hourly is also green, then so these stocks are generally have a reasonable possibility of success, right? But again, we don't need to make that judgment ourselves. The software that we have makes that call for us, right? So let's take a few stocks that we took trades on, and one of them is Alexion, and one of the things you'll notice is that we had a buy signal on this, and this trade is still open with a reasonable profit right now. And for day trading, you're basically making $3 per stock. That's a pretty good profit. We have Amgen as well that was doing well as well, and it was also in a on the list that was actually a sector that was outperforming as well. Unfortunately, the toss performance a little slow at this time of the night, but as you can see, we had a buy signal that was triggered, and this has got a profit of $1.89. Now let's take a look at Humana, and then we'll take a United. We'll look at United Healthcare as well, and these are some of the sectors that are a little bit defensive in nature, and with the market almost at all-time high, this is a sector that hasn't lagged a little bit, so it's doing a little bit of catching up as well. And you can see we had a buy signal generated here as well. So I'll talk a little bit about GBT as well. So this is a stock that was actually mentioned quite a bit on some of the social media. As you can look at on Friday, there was quite a few people talking about GBT in general as well, right? And so not that the software looks at social media stocks or social media forums to make a determination, but since this is anyway outperforming the market, uh, it also percolates up in our list. So I tend to focus on stocks that have broken the opening range breakout, either on the hourly or the 30-minute basis, and who have decent volume that's flowing into them. Right? So most of the stock selection ends up coming from this particular list. Now, the way this list helps us is that it keeps you very focused. So instead of looking at multiple things all during the day, so instead of looking at a 15-minute list or a daily list or another criteria, we just look at this criteria because this criteria matches closely with the overall ultimate trading strategy, and helps you pick stocks that are poised to move during the day. So it's not necessary that all of these trades are just day trades. Some of these trades will actually could last between 1 to 3 or 4 days, and it also depends upon the time frame you choose. So I'm essentially trading a lot on the 15-minute time frame. So for me, most of these trades will go on for a couple of days. So this is a trade that as we was initiated 11:30 on 6:18, and this trade is still open. So basically, in 1, 2, 3, and let's say 3.25 days, it actually generated a profit of $6.09, and this is still open, right? So the way it helps you is you do not need to make your own call, and when the close comes, it'll actually give a close signal, and that's when you end up closing the trade. So that's all I wanted to cover today. So hopefully this market watch feature is something that some of you will find useful. And I wanted to show you one other thing. There's no data in it at this point in time because it's after hours. But like in this case, you can look at the index watch, and I've selected S&P 500. Now, if you look at it tomorrow morning, you will see above the zero line stocks that are advancing, and below the zero line stocks that are declining. So by just looking at the advanced decline line, you will be able to make a determination if this market is trending or neutral. So if it is roughly, say, let's say, you know, 55 to 45, it's pretty much of a neutral market. But on a day when the market is trending, you will see this ratio to be, 70 to 10, 70 issues declining, advancing, and 30 declining. So this is a fairly useful feature, and so make sure you select the index watch. So by default, it is set to the heat watch, but you can then also select the index watch, and then from the public list select S&P 500 or any other list that you find useful, and you follow. So hopefully this helps out, and best of luck for the trading week, and I'll talk to you guys soon.